This is Dr. Mark Murphy, and I'm welcoming you to another episode of One Final Twist.
How's it going with you?
Going great. It's really been a good week. I'm still. This is crunch time for physicians because everybody's met their deductible. So this
End
is
of the
that.
year.
Yeah.
I work in healthcare too. I'm an EMT. My wife is she's a nurse over the one of the largest ERs in the state, and it's just a crazy time of the year, and I can only imagine how it is for a doctor. So
Well, so it's that way for all of us. It's a team. It's a team deal, as you know. So
that's right.
we're all busy together. That's for sure.
This week we're joined by award-winning author Dr. Mark Murphy. He has a new book coming out in January called Rose Dew. Welcome, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, spoiler free, but give our viewers a little bit about your new book.
So, first off, I live in Savannah, Georgia, and yeah, there's that old adage, write what you know, and I say the most true way to represent yourself is to write where you're from and be able to have that perspective. So, this novel is about a Savannah physician who, attending physician at a teaching hospital, who disappears, just doesn't show up for work one day, and there's no trace of her initially. Basically, her bed's unmade, her car's missing, but nobody can find her. Trail goes cold. Initially, her ex-boyfriend is a suspect, but he's got an airtight alibi. And 6 months go by, and there's no leads really. And all of a sudden, the police get an anonymous tip that her remains are buried in the marsh in a subdivision called Rosedew, which is where she lives. And lo and behold, they find that they do find some skeletal remains there, and that's kind of what starts the book. So that's kind of the premise of the whole thing. And Rosedew is actually the subdivision that I live in. It's a marshside community here in Savannah, a little bit back in the woods. So a little bit of inherent creepiness to it. There's a lot of wildlife and a lot of Spanish moss and shadows back here.
I totally
So
understand. My wife and I visited Savannah several years ago for our anniversary. Fell in love with that whole area, the marsh, the Riverwalk downtown, all of
it
the beautiful squares and the parks. A lot of history in Savannah.
really is.
A lot of mysticism too.
Yep.
The are when you decided to write this, was it with you being a physician, was it based on possibly anybody that you knew, or how did that work?
No, not really. I mean, everybody asks that question. You're a writer too, so you get it. I mean, everybody thinks you're writing about them. Is that me? And it's like, no. Although I will say that certain characters, certain features of people that I know, because you can't help but do that. Most of the characters are amalgamations of things you've seen or witnessed. But no, this is, Michael Palmer, who's another physician writer, once said that most of his novels started with a what if moment, like what if this happened, and I started thinking about. In this context about what would happen if because I mean I every morning I get up at 3:30 and I do the elliptical and then get ready to go into work, and I'm in there by 5, and one of my patients, Mark, you're always here. If you weren't here one day, I wonder something if something was wrong because you're always at work. And so I thought, what if I just didn't show up one day? What if I just, what would people do if I did, and I had a full schedule of procedures? I'm a gastroenterologist, so I'm not, the character in my book is a surgeon, Janie O'Connor, but my dad was a surgeon. So I kind of know that kind of lifestyle. But what if I just didn't show up for work? What if a surgeon with a busy surgical center just didn't show up one day and there was no trace of him or her, in this case, her, and that's really where the idea got started. And but it was not about any specific person or does not template any specific individual, really.
Yeah, physicians, they are typically the one of the most have a rigorous schedule, and if they're not where they're at, because you probably make rounds about the same time every day when you make
Yep.
rounds, and if you show up, it's either an emergency or something's come up.
Right.
Um, when you wrote, are you more of a plotter where you create an outline, or are you kind of a seat of your pants guy and just write and let it rip?
So everybody has their style. There are always debates about this. So when I first started, first off, my writing is, I write a column for the Savannah paper and have done that for 15, 16 years. And those short pieces, they're kind of stream of conscious. I get an idea and I'll knock them out in the morning, an hour and a half. And, I can do 750 words in that length of time. If I have a kernel of the idea, those just see the pants. Thrillers I found are not very conducive to see the pants writing. I mean, you end up doing a lot of editing if you do that, a lot more editing. So what I do, I get an idea, and then I kind of decide where I want to end up, like where the basic idea about where I want the story to go, and then I'll write an outline, and then I kind of go through the outline. I'll change things as I go. This book actually has been through four iterations now. I had one sort of a parallel story structure with two major characters, and it was too long. So then I consolidated and focused around Frank, who's the chief investigator, Frank Winger, the chief investigator, and I had to replot each time. So, but every time I think it's easier when you're trying to do twists and turns in a thriller like this if you know where you're going and then can kind of use that plot line to navigate those twists and turns. That's just the way I write.
I noticed, I did a little digging in your bio.
Hmm.
It's been several years since you wrote a novel.
Yep,
Are we
that's
going to
true.
have to, are we going to have to wait 14 more years for the next story?
No, no. I'll tell you the story behind that. So I write as a hobby, but I enjoy having it published. In the interim, and the Shadow Man came out in 2012.
Mhm.
Curse the Thrax, a young adult book I wrote, came out 2 years later, and then I have not written one for. It's been this will be 12 years since the last
Yeah.
book came out. Um, but that's 12 years since the last book came out. That's the operative term. I've written two other novels in that time span. That are on the shelf that are not published. One of them was written basically based on a story that was taken from my now 96-year-old mother-in-law, um, who I promised her I would not publish that story until she passed away. Well, she's almost 100, and I can't. It's about her. She said, I don't care if I write me after I'm dead, but when I'm still alive, it just might be embarrassing. So I said, okay. So it's just in the computer on the hard drive, just sitting there, and I can't submit anywhere. And the other one, I love the book, but it's somewhat tragically flawed and way too long. And I got interested in this other story idea in the interim, and so it's just like we all have those things that are back there. So actually there are two other novels that are close to ready to go, and but I just haven't put them out there yet because it's for various reasons, obviously.
The
Um,
the Curse of Thrax, which I have not read, is
mhm.
a middle-aged, is that right? Middle-age or middle school grade
Yeah, it's
story?
a young adult book. It's actually kind of like a Harry Potter level of reading kind of
Okay.
stories. I mean, like and it was kind of that story came out of the idea came out of the Hunger Games. The premise of the Hunger Games, which I read all of those. I thought kids killing kids is pretty horrible, and my son and I had a bet. My son's now 34, but this is when he was in his 20s. I bet him that I could write a young adult book that did not involve uh, sex or egregious violence or children killing other children, and yet would still be interesting and that he would like it. And that started him a bet. And he said, "Okay, Dad, you're on." I've also bet if I could come up with a rap song, and that didn't go quite as well. But but the Curse of Thrax actually ended up being a pretty decent book, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I've actually started the sequel of that book too. But it's at the level of like a Harry Potter kind of thing. It's not really a middle school grade book.
I
It's
got you.
it's but it was fun to write and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
So
I'll
something to do.
definitely have to check. I do like a good YA, and I'll definitely have to check that one out.
Cool.
Um,
Thank you.
how do you switch from writing the YA to a hard-boiled crime novel? Is that just a switch you're able to flip, or do you have to keep yourself in line?
Well, again, we all do this, right? I mean, when I'm writing anything, I'm in that story. I mean, it's like another world that I'm living in during that time. And so when I was writing The Shadow Man, which is my very first novel that was published, that was a murder mystery about a serial killer in Savannah. and that actually is about a serial killer who frames a surgeon as a serial killer. Turns out the killer himself is also a surgeon, but that's another story. Um, but that was one thing, and I really like that kind of novel. And then the young adult book I wrote as a kind of as a on that bet with my son. But I mean, it's funny because we were in the we were up in the Glacier National Park when we made that bet, and Glacier is, there's a lot of mountains and trails and stuff. I could easily find myself in a post-apocalyptic world, which is where the Curse of Thrax is set in. And it's kind of like everything's gone back to nature, and so there's a lot of forests, and there are dragons in it and all kinds of things. And I could see all that happening. So I sort of constructed this other world in my head. And so when I was writing the Curse of Thrax, I was living in that world. And then, yeah, then I came back to when I was writing this murder mystery, that thing that I've written, this thriller, Rose to. I've inhabited that world again. It's just I am in that world when I'm writing that piece, and then I go back to that's the harder switch to flip is going between real life and whatever I'm writing at the time. Sometimes I even get mixed up about whether did that happen in the book or did that actually happen to me. So you do that
Uh,
sometimes.
I understand. So I did when I was digging into your backstory. Uh, you helped catch a serial killer?
Yeah. Okay. So if you look up Blanche Taylor Moore, on Wikipedia, Blanche, when I was in residency at UNC Chapel Hill, I trained it in North Carolina. Um, a man came into the hospital when I was an intern, and he was very sick. He had a peripheral neuropathy, he had a nerve damage, and he was
Mhm.
in septic shock. And his white blood cell count was through the floor. And I talked to my supervising resident at the time. We were kind of going through the different things that could do that. And I said, I mean, acute heavy metal poisoning can cause this picture. Should I order a heavy metal screen? She said, okay, fine, go ahead and do that. So I did that, and the heavy metal screen came back terribly positive for arsenic.
Oh,
And in fact, the pathologist at the hospital called and said, "Hey, what's the deal with this Dwight Moore guy?" And I said, "Well, he just came in last night, septic shock and peripheral neuropathy. Well, he's got the highest level of arsenic ever detected in anybody in the state of North Carolina, living or dead."
oh God.
And so it turns out that his wife tried to poison him. His brand new wife that just got married tried to poison him. Is Blanche Taylor Moore, and then they realized when she was being investigated for this that a lot of other people around her had died. A lot of other men, her father. Her neighbor, her first husband, who'd been diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neuropathic condition as well. So they exhumed all those bodies, and they all died of arsenic poisoning.
Oh
So
wow.
Blanche was a serial killer, and she killed at least five people, maybe more. And so she's on death row in North Carolina to this day. I think she's in her 90s now.
Oh
She's still
wow.
on death row. Um, and they made a TV movie about her. Elizabeth Montgomery starred in the title role. That's how long ago it was.
Oh yeah.
But who played on Bewitched?
Yeah.
She was the actress who played Blanche.
Oh
She was much
wow.
better looking than Blanche, by the way. But and the funny thing is, Blanche tried to serve us all the ward team, taking care of her estranged husband who she poisoned. She tried to serve us all brownies. We wouldn't eat them. We turned them over to the State Bureau of Investigation instead. And but anyway, the bottom line is if you look her up on Wikipedia, my name is actually in the Wikipedia article
Oh
as one of the
wow.
doctors taking care of us. So it's just kind of a funny aside. But yeah,
Yeah.
I ordered the test that caught Blanche Taylor Moore. So yeah.
Yeah, I made a note of that. I'll definitely look her up. Um, will there be is your next novel in Savannah the Rose Dew world? The is what's coming next.
I think the strong likelihood is that I'm going to keep writing in things like this. I like this sort of thing. It's fun to me to write mysteries. I love Savannah. I grew up here. It's my hometown. My wife's from here. Um, so not so much Rosedew necessarily, but Frank Winger, who's a detective who's in this, I like Frank's character. He's great. He's intriguing. He's interesting. He's textured. He's a guy that you want to know more about. He's got a backstory that's pretty interesting. So, former Army vet. There are a lot of Army veterans in Savannah. There, Fort Stewart's near here. Hunter Army Air Force Base is here. So there are a lot of military people in this area. My dad came here with the Army back during the Vietnam War. That's how we ended up in Savannah, actually. So, and Frank has that military background. He has a lot of other things in his history that make him an interesting character. So I think Frank's going to make another appearance in another novel at some point. So yeah,
Good.
I think the odds are pretty high that Frank's going to be in the next book.
Good.
Um,
I really did like Frank. He's a very determined detective.
yep,
He does what needs to be done to get the answers that he seeks.
right.
Um,
Uh,
I won't say much more. I don't want to give anything away, but man, that was the closing chapter of Rose Dew. It just blew you away. Um,
Thank you.
so, does your writing make you happy? Is it your happy place?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's to me. So it's funny. People who don't write don't understand this. You understand it. Okay. It's a compulsion. Somebody asked me, well, what made you decide to write? Well, I was a writer before I was a doctor. I mean, I've been a doctor and my website says this, but it's true. I've been a doctor since 1988, but I've been a writer since I was a kid. I wrote a newspaper for my classmates when I was in fourth grade. I wrote a play in fifth grade about the signing the Declaration of Independence that we put on for the PTA.
Mhm.
I mean, I've always been a writer. I won a poetry contest in ninth grade. And the funny thing is, I accidentally entered the adult, as opposed to for high school students, I entered the wrong poetry contest. I entered the adult one instead. And when I went up to get I didn't win it. I placed second. I was the runner up. But what's funny was, I mean, the one who won it was like an English professor, and I was second, and I was like 14. And it was funny because they looked at me like, is this the wrong award? Because I was supposed to be entering the one for high school students by the Poetry Society of Georgia, but it ended up being the adult thing. And the bottom line is, I enjoy writing. It is something that it's very different from what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I really like doing it. It's relaxing to me. Some people play golf, some people fish. That's what relaxes them. Writing is relaxing to me. It's a leisure activity.
What are you reading right now?
I'm actually, so this is kind of weird. I'm doing two things. I'm rereading Stephen King's It, which is one of the scariest books I've ever read in my life, because I haven't read it in 30 years. They just had that Welcome to Derry series come back
Yeah.
on I think it was on HBO Max. Um, and that intrigued me, so I started rereading it. I forgot that it was 1150 pages.
Mhm.
So so I'm in the middle of that right now, and it's interesting. I really like it. It's funny how dated it is because it came out in the mid '80s, and you forget how much stuff was changed since then. But Stephen King is I've always felt was an underrated writer, and as a thriller writer myself, I admire his craft. I think he's very good at doing what he does. His best novels are phenomenal. So I've that's what I'm in the middle of right now.
Have you ever read any of his crime novels? The Mr. Mercedes trilogy and Holly? Have you
Yep.
those are really good and they're not scary. They're crime novels.
Yep, they are. I've actually read everything he's ever written.
Yeah, me too.
I like Stephen King. It's funny. He wrote that book 11/22/63, the one about the Kennedy assassination, with that time travel novel, which is not scary but interesting. And the character in that, one of the main characters, this teacher that's a major character, was supposed to be a teacher at Savannah Country Day School, which is where my kids went to school. So Stephen King was here for the Savannah Book Festival, and I was the book festival director back then. And I asked him, I said, "So what made you pick Country Day?" And he said, "Frankly, I've never seen Country Day. I've never been to Savannah before today." And uh, and so he just randomly picked a school out of the phone book or what offline or somewhere wherever he got it.
Yeah.
But it's such a he just that the plot lines in that book were great. And again, I'm always admired what he did. I agree with you. His crime novels are very good. They're excellent. Just like J.K. Rowling's crime novels, the ones she wrote under the pseudonym, are also
Mhm.
very good. The
Yeah.
camera like Corman Strike novels are
Yeah.
also well done. So
How can our viewers find you online? Your
Oh,
handles for your social media?
so I'm on Facebook, Mark E. Murphy author. I'm on Instagram as well. My website is www.mark-e-murphy.com, and that's got links to all of my social media on it, and also links to the Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other websites that sell the book. The book's not for sale yet. Obviously, you can pre-order. And but that's probably but I'm I'm if you look on the Mark Murphy author or Mark Murphy writer, that's my Instagram handle. That's probably the easiest way. But if you go to the author website, it links to everything. That, and I've got a Blue Sky account that it links to, that I put a lot of essays. My Substack account's on there. So all that's on the mark-e-murphy.com website. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
All right. If our viewers wanted to get an autographed or a signed copy, is there a bookstore in Savannah that they could order from, or do you sell them on your website or any place like that?
I haven't done it yet because the book's not out, I'm a as you might suspect, I'm a firm believer in independent bookstores. I
Yeah.
think we need to support them. E. Shaver's bookstore in Savannah, which is downtown, they're going to be handling my book release party, which is here in Savannah on the 24th of January. It's 4 days after the book formally comes out, and E. Shaver's will have autographed copies for sale in the bookstore. Um, I'll probably, after the book comes out, probably put a link on the author website to be able so that I can send out autographed copies to people if they want them. And I did a I for for the Shadow Man, I did a summary book giveaway for autographed copies on Goodreads. I did that as well,
Okay.
so I'll probably do another one of those.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
so just
Um,
kind of a nice thing, you know.
yeah, yeah, I love the signed copies. Um,
I do too. But it's a fully independent bookstore. And if you go to downtown Savannah, the DeSoto Hilton is the tallest building in downtown Savannah,
mhm.
right smack in the middle of town, and right next to the Jasper Green Monument in the middle of one of the squares. I think it's Wright Square. But East Shavers is right across the street from the DeSoto Hilton,
Okay. Yeah,
and
there's so much history in Savannah. Uh, People don't realize the Bonaventure Cemetery was I absolutely loved, and you mentioned it in the book.
I do.
Um, but I that was a great place to visit, and uh, the Mercer House,
Yeah,
and of course, I was a big fan of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which I'm sure a
right,
lot of people were attracted to Savannah because of that book.
right,
Um, but it was Savannah's to me was very, very interesting to say the least, because there's not when we visited several years ago, there was not many hotels,
right.
and had to stay in bed and breakfast, and
Hmm.
that was totally new to me and the wife, and really enjoyable. I
Yep.
didn't think I'd like it, but I really did enjoy it.
Well, there and then all those nice old houses too. They're all Savannah's very walkable. So the
Yes.
downtown area, there's tons of restaurants and little shops, and the Savannah College of Art and Design is downtown, and it's a very urban campus. There are students down there, and they've opened all these art galleries and sculpture galleries and all these kinds of things. Really, that it makes it a really nice place to visit. It's actually a much nicer town now than when I was growing up. I've lived here since I was in first grade. But it's Savannah's a nicer place to visit now because of all that downtown activity and the history and everything else. So
Oh, well, I do want to say thank you for joining us. Anything you'd like to add that I didn't, that you're a cause that you're passionate about, or anything that I didn't ask about?
I'll tell you, not really a cause. I'm sure that I'm going to get political, and I'm not going to ask people for donations or anything. But I do say that if just to kind of as another plug for Savannah in general, as you're talking about that, and the book, which obviously have a vested interest in people being interested in. If you liked Midnight, and I think part of the attraction of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, John Barrett made Savannah and the inherent quirkiness and weirdness and history of this town a character in the book, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you felt that as part of the thing. This novel does the same thing. I set out intentionally to make Savannah be a part of Rosedew, the novel, because I do love the city. I love all the aspects of it, all the it's like New Orleans in some respects, it's this elegant decay a little bit, but there's also the verdant nature of the islands and the Spanish moss and the live oaks and all the wildlife, and just it's a unique and interesting town. And I think you should really get a sense of that when people read the novel. And if I'm going to espouse anything, it's come visit us in town here in Savannah, come back, uh, and uh, and see the city now, and read the book when you're down here, because I think that makes it a more enriching experience when you're able to read about a place and then experience that place.
Exactly.
It really adds depth and breadth to your experience, both in the book and in your visit to the city. So
Yeah,
that's if I got a cause, that's my cause.
I
So
got you. But and I will say that, the way you describe Savannah is spot on from what I remember from several years back. Just a gorgeous town full of history. Um, totally worth visiting. So,
I think so. I mean, I'm a little biased, but I certainly think it is. And it's funny also having grown up here. Um, my love for the city, which again is reflected in the novel, is even deeper than it was before. It's not just nostalgia. What you realize is I've lived a lot of other places. I mean, I've lived in other states, I've lived in other states actually, and I love North Carolina, and I've lived in the northern part of Georgia and everywhere else. But as I visited, like most people visited New York City and Chicago and overseas and Edinburgh and London, all places that I really enjoy visiting. My son lived in Seattle for a while. I was out in Seattle for a good bit, seeing him. But what I realized is, like Dorothy said, in The Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home. It is home for me, and I've realized how wonderful it is to be from here since I've been able to experience the rest of the world.
gotcha.
So,
Well, all right. I do appreciate you joining me today. I do appreciate it. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, however your family celebrates.
yes, sir. Same to you. I
All
hope you have
right.
a great one. It's a good week, and no matter what your state of religion or faith is,
Exactly.
it's a good week. It
It
really
is.
is.
It
So,
very, very sure is. All
thank
righty.
you.
Thank you very much. And we
God
will
bless you.
talk to you next time. God bless
Thank you
you.
much. Take care. Bye now.